Let's go ahead and walk through the lighting setup. Now, we had a scene that was pretty intense in terms of geometry, so it would take a few hours to actually light map. We're going to take a simple scene so that we can actually walk through it and see the changes closer to just real time. It'll help make more sense of how we want to do lighting and bake lighting. So in order to do this, let's go ahead and create a new scene. Control N, Command N, or go to File and New Scene. And we want to go to our Tools, Pro Builder, and then we just want to go to the Pro Builder window. And inside of here, we're just going to create a new shape. Go ahead and click on the plus button. And we're going to make this one, we'll say it's going to be 2 by 2 by 2. Go ahead and click on Build. Now, once it's built it out, you should see a block like this. In face mode, we just want to go ahead and select all the faces that are in here. So we're going to hold Control, left click on each face, including the bottom one. So they should all be yellow right there for selection. Over on the right hand side of the column, there's a Flip Face Normals. Click on Flip Face Normals. What happens with this is that now you see the inside of the box instead of the outside. So basically we're inside of a room at this point. Alright, with this finished off, we can go ahead and get out of our face mode. We'll go ahead and close the Pro Builder window. We now have a box which can contain the information we need for it, so that it's going to be an interior for the lighting. That way we're not worrying about the skybox lighting the system. We can see directly what happens and effects occur inside of here. Let's go ahead and take the camera, and we'll go ahead and place the camera so that it's looking inside of here as well. If you have the camera selected, you can do Control-Shift-F, or you can go to Game Object, Align with View. We're going to delete the current directional light, which means inside is just going to be black for a moment. And actually, yeah, we can do that. And then we're going to go for the interior lighting here. It will start with a different kind of light. You can go to Hierarchy, Create Light, and choose a point light. And then be sure that your point light is inside the box. If it's outside the box, you're going to get a black. We want to make sure that it's inside the box. And then the range for it, set to about 1.5. In order for anything to be baked, the object has to be static. So up on the top right, you'll see the cube right next to it is static. There's a lot of options for static. We're going to go ahead and just click on the Static General, which is just going to make everything static on this object. We want to go ahead and, at this point, we will go ahead and introduce the light mapper. So we're going to go up to our Windows, down to Rendering, choose the lighting settings. Let's go ahead and dock this to the side here. On the lighting, we don't need the exterior, the skybox being used. So if you select it and push delete, you'll remove it from the scene. We're only concerned about the interior being lit by the objects that are within here. You can change the ambient color to a different color, which will actually adjust the inside. Now, this would be useful if you're trying to create an atmosphere. You can create a visual effect that just goes across the whole thing, but also doing that with post effects would be beneficial as well. Now, if I take it down to what it would be, inside an interior room there wouldn't be ambient light, so it would actually be black for this one. Now when we go into side of here, we have, if you notice, real-time lighting is currently checked. We don't want any real-time lighting on this. What we're only looking for is baked lighting. There are there's 3 different types of light mappers. There's a CPU and a GPU, and then there's Enlighten. Enlighten is part of just a real-time updating to the light mapper system. We're looking for a progressive light mapper system. Go ahead and change this to the GPU preview one. Now, to be able to start seeing this, we need a couple of things to actually happen. One, the point light needs to actually be checking for the mode to be baked. So we're going to change this to bake. We're going to turn the shadow type to soft shadows. We'll take this up to 1 to start with. Alright, let's go ahead and generate the light map for it. So at this point, with a single 1-point light, this is what the actual lighting would do inside of a scene if you were to place a single light in here. Now this will get us started. The next thing that we want to do is create a quad inside the hierarchy. You can click on Create 3D Object Quad. You'll notice the quad that you have inside the scene should be angled one direction or another like this. Go ahead and bring it completely in the scene. We can lower it down or bring it up. Inside of your assets, go ahead and click on Create, and we're just going to go down to Material. Material, let's just say this is going to be a light material 1, and we're going to assign this one to our quad right here. So with the light material 1 assigned to it, we're going to change the color. Say for instance you want to have a bluish or an aqua tint to it. We can choose this. For the emission, we want to have light actually emit from the object versus just the lighting right here. You can actually do emission, which is going to be a glow. You can do HDR, high dynamic range is going to be, we'll choose the bluish tint right here. Now notice when you choose this, you have an option down below which is intensity. Intensity is going to be how much it's actually producing, how much it's actually creating light inside of the spaces right here. Now at the moment, there's nothing actually being emitted from. We have to make sure that each object we place in is static. When it's static, then it becomes part of the scene. So if you notice now, you actually have a blend between the blue onto this. If I was to take the light itself and turn it off, for more of an effect, you'll notice that now the room itself is actually being lit by the blue object right here. We could take this one, we can make another copy of it over here and rotate it 180 this direction. And we'll place it up against the wall as well. And notice as we actually make changes and updates to it, the progressive light mapper is actually updating those changes for us. Now, once we have these two objects inside the scene, we can kind of start working with what is the light map settings, what are they available for us here. Inside of here, we have a prioritized view, which means it's the view you're looking at. So if I rotate this way, if it was updating, it's going to only update what it sees inside of here. And as you rotate around, it'll continue to update any of the changes that occur. Now, when you're dealing with a scene that's nice and small like this one is, the changes, when they actually do occur, go by so quick that you're not having to wait too long. If you do have to wait long though, you have a direct samples. Direct samples is how many rays is shot out from the light source. When it shoots out, it's going to shoot a ray out, hit the surface, and bounce. The bounce is going to be based on how many you have, which for us we have bounces is set to 2. You have indirect samples, so the indirect samples is based on once it shoots out, how many is it coming out from the indirectly being affected by it. The direct samples, you can always take this down to a very small number. For instance, like 2, you could take direct samples down to 32 or so. It's going to leave the scene a little bit messier, but it's also going to render really quick. So if you have a larger scene, you'll be able to see the changes you're making in a close to type of fashion. Once you get done with it, that's when you can bump this up to like 64 samples and 512 or 1024 in direct samples, and it's going to smooth out everything that you have on this. The next thing that you want to do is down below you have a light pad, the light map padding. This is going to be when the object for bake If you notice here, you have an object where the UV is being baked out. If you have bleeding, you have one object that has some color that's not supposed to be there. When you're in your scene, you can actually increase the padding to about 10 to 20, and anywhere in between there will usually make sure there's enough space in between the UVs that are laid out to be far enough apart. Another element as we go down through here, you have the compressed light map. If you uncheck it, it's going to be uncompressed larger size. This is probably not something you want while you're working with a big scene. You want to make sure that once you like it, then do the then don't compress the light map. The ambient occlusion, if you click on this, ambient occlusion is going to create a pseudo shade wherever two surfaces touch. It's going to create a darker shade around those. So for instance, the max distance, if I was to actually increase it, notice that just a very simple increase or decrease is going to show, we'll do 2 on here, how much darker it is. But if we drop this to say 0.5, then we're getting just the edges themselves, which is actually creating the shadow for it. So those are going to be the basic setup for your light map settings. You have your auto generate down here. If you don't have auto generate, it means that you can make changes, and when you're ready to generate it, you can click on generate lighting. If you have it and you're not seeing a change in it, you can go clear baked data and then regenerate the lighting. I'm going to click back on the auto generate there. Alright, so we have a scene right now with two objects that have some glow. Let's go ahead and change the color of one of these. We'll take the light material on this one, and we're going to change the color itself. We'll say this one will be yellow, and we'll assign it to one of these. So now we have the object inside of here with yellow, and then we have the other with blue. Now if you're wanting to have the object itself increase, so for instance, say we want the blue material to be stronger inside the scene, you can actually increase the intensity right here. And as you increase the intensity here, it's going to increase its effective results inside the entire scene. And you can go for a negative as well value. So that's going to be basics for using the light mapper. The last part of this one we want to take is going to be setting up a system on the camera. So the camera, if we wanted to actually add some post effects to it, remember when you downloaded the 3D game kit, it already came with it. If you don't have it, you can go to the window, you can go to your package manager, and then you can choose post-processing and then install if it needs to be installed. It's currently there and up to date. In order to use it, we can just say add component. The post-processing options, if you start typing in post, it'll come up with a few options here. You have post-process layer. The post-process layer is going to be what you have assigned to the camera. The camera is going to have an option for what layer do you want to render. Currently, the objects are on default. It'll give you a little warning saying, not to use everything or default, but we only have a few objects in there, so that works fine. We're going to choose an anti-aliasing style. We'll do the subpixel. The next thing we want to do is add a component that's going to be the post-process volume. Volume is going to be the types of processing effects we assign to the camera. This can be on the camera or separate objects. We're going to say it's global, meaning it's going to be used across the board for any of them. The profile, click on New. It's going to create a new profile for us. We'll go ahead and close the lighting window here so we have more space. So when it creates a new camera profile, you can now directly use it right here by saying Add Effect. And say, for instance, we want to do a vignette. When we do this, we'll have an on-off, and then we can actually check the type or the mode that we want to use. So when I do this, I can change the intensity and actually have the intensity larger, smaller in the scene. If you're in your game view, then it'll be more accurate in terms of this is closer to what the viewer would see. We can add another effect. Let's say we want a bloom so that we can actually have a glow that comes off of the two lights or the two emissive objects. To have a bloom occur, you can just add the bloom. You can change your intensity and you can begin increasing it. We'll go ahead and turn on the other additional options here. And with this object, we'll actually change the color. Let's see, we'll make the intensity go up to more of a yellow. And then we're going to increase it just a little bit. So this actually gets a yellow tint to it. If we wanted to make sure that it was just its own color, you could change it to white. As we increase the intensity though, notice that it's going to have some glow. If you increase it a lot, you're going to get something that looks more blown out. So it just depends on the object itself that you're trying to adjust for. We'll take our intensity down from here. And then your threshold is going to be how much is being affected right there. So here, it's also going to be in the scene as well. So when you're rotating around in your scene, you'll be able to see the glow and the vignette going through there. Again, adding any other effects inside of here, you'll be able to use those just by clicking on them and adding it, and then turning them on or off, and then making sure that the settings form inside of here are set up for it. The focal distance, this one again, if I'm actually adjusting it for the camera, then we can have an object close and far being blurred out. Very basic, but a good setup so that you have the lighting, you have the progressive light mapper being able to be used, and then you have post effects being assigned to the camera.